and also get vaccinated. Although situations around the world now show some increase in cases, especially in the Americas, Europe and East Mediterranean regions, which suggests that there could be a third wave, further affirms that non-compliance with the COVID-19 regulations and growing evidence of vaccine hesitancy could endanger millions of lives. Last Friday, I participated in the sensitization meeting of the Muslim scholars and imams on COVID-19 vaccination rollout organized by the National Primary Health Care Development Agency in collaboration with the Nigerian Spring Council for Islamic Affairs, where we urge the leadership of the Muslim Ummah to mobilize and educate their adherents to take the vaccines, because it is the Presidential Task Force will keep you posted with numbers of persons vaccinated so far, in as much as our record shows that over 7 million persons have been vaccinated on the African continent. A platform will be created in the course of the week to show Nigerians every information relating to the management of vaccines and, of course, the pandemic. The Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, would give further updates on this. Yesterday, Sunday, 21st March 2021, the Presidential Task Force received 300,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccines from NTA, Nigeria. You remember they had earlier to give us, to send their own contribution, part delivery of what they had initially promised. This is acknowledged with thanks as we encourage other partners to contribute towards the fight against COVID-19 and urge other donors who had promised to facilitate early and quick delivery of their donations. The disclosure that Nigerian scientists have produced at least 2 local COVID-19 vaccines which are awaiting clinical trials and certification is significant. This is a welcome development that will open a new vista in scientific breakthrough and will boost the morale and image of the medical industry in the country. I call on all relevant agencies to provide the required support and enabling environment for smooth conduct of the remaining protocols for the certification of these vaccines, with a view to encouraging and motivating other researchers. The Presidential Task Force had informed you in the past few weeks on the discussions with the KLM and Emirates Airlines services in Nigeria. Today, I would like to inform you that KLM has commenced full operations in and out of Nigeria since 15th March 2021, while operations of the Emirates Airline in and out of country has been suspended with exemption of cargo and humanitarian flights. In the course of the week, a new travel and quarantine protocol will be unveiled to incorporate persons vaccinated against this virus and make travel safe for international passengers. Efforts are being put in place for the reopening of the Kano, Malaminu Kano International Airport, Port Harcourt International Airport, and Enugu International Airport. The National Incident Manager will update you on this with further details. I now invite the Permanent Secretary, Federal Ministry of Health, who is standing in for the two ministers who are away on official duty, and thereafter the Director General, Nigerian Center for Disease Control, and the National Incident Manager, and the Executive Director of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, who would brief you in depth on more technical developments. I thank you for your kind attention and have a very pleasant evening. Thank you.
The Chairman, Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, and the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, other members of the Task Force, ladies and gentlemen of the press, I am here representing my two ministers, just like the Chair said, who are out of Abuja on other official engagements. The past week, we have seen a reduction in the number of confirmed cases daily, even with the sustained testing rate, and we intend to keep it so. The total number of confirmed cases in Nigeria as of this morning is 161,737 from 1,727,467 sample tests with a test positivity ratio of 9.4. Sadly, we have lost about 2,030 lives. In the last week, we have recorded a total of 1,080 cases. This is less than what was recorded daily during the second wave, even with the sustained testing. While this is good on its own, we should not account of this or rest on our hours, for it is still too early to do so. We shall continue to sustain our testing rate to ensure that we identify, isolate, and treat positive cases in our dear country. This is necessary to avoid a third wave, which some countries are presently experiencing. We still continue to work towards a better outcome of cases by critically reviewing all the areas that will lead to better management of COVID-19 cases while focusing on the evolving nature of the virus and the disease. We have also ensured continuous interface with the case managers at the various isolation and treatment centers aimed at meeting the immediate logistic needs and mitigating other challenges using the interim measures. Ladies and gentlemen, in addition to this, we are sustaining distribution of the available commodities, that is the PPEs, consumables, to ensure availability at all times for end users at the treatment centers. Evidence has shown improvement in management of cases as many gaps identified during the supervisory visits have been addressed. Some centers are operating in new and purpose-built isolation wards, while there is an ongoing remodeling of some of these centers. The centers have improved workflow, better infection prevention and control, availability of better equipment, such as the oxygen concentrators and ventilators, etc. We are all aware of the vaccine rollout in most of the states, and we are quite impressed by the reception. Last week, the ministry received AstraZeneca Group, and the meeting provided us an opportunity for one-on-one clarification on the vaccines. The outcome of the meeting was a reassurance of the safety and efficacy of their vaccine against COVID-19. We have not yet recorded unusual side effects among those who have received the vaccine so far, which includes both the Honorable Minister, the two ministers, and even my humble self. NAFDAC is monitoring the process as part of a global tracking of adverse effects of the vaccine. Anyone who has received the vaccine and is experiencing any adverse reaction should please report to NAFDAC using their app called Med Safety App. It's available both on Android and on iOS. Or you can also reach out to the center where you receive the vaccination. We have received reports of racketeering in some designated vaccination centers. This is not necessary as vaccination has been scheduled in phases, such that frontline health workers and those at the higher risk of the infection are vaccinated first after registration at the portal. Everyone will be vaccinated, and the vaccination is free. There is no need to pay for any vaccine. Thank you for listening.
Chair of the Presidential Task Force and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, permanent secretaries, members of the Presidential Task Force, gentlemen of the press, thank you again for joining us. Last week, we were in 4 states, Ebonyi, Enugu, Anambra, and Delta states, to commission new laboratories, visit emergency operations centers, visit healthcare workers working on our front lines in our treatment centers, and meet with their excellencies, the executive governors of each of these 4 states. After 13 months of this response, we are actively thinking about sustainability and resilience while continuing the active response itself. The Honorable Minister of State for Health commissioned a new molecular lab at the Federal Medical Center, Asaba, which is now integral into delivering diagnostics, research, and development for Delta State through the FMC. Additionally, on behalf of the Honorable Minister, I commissioned a new lab at the Alex Ekweme Federal University Teaching Hospital in Abakaliki. So all these are adding to the health security architecture that we're developing for the country. We're also in Enugu and Anambra states to review project progress across different projects. As we shared last year, one of our biggest priorities is to ensure that we build back better during the response from the very beginning, and we've been focusing on this throughout the response. This means that every state in Nigeria should have a standard molecular lab with the right human resources to make these diagnoses, a treatment center, well-equipped resource to manage infectious diseases, an emergency operations center that pulls everything together, makes decisions, and a well-trained public health workforce that can coordinate, learn, grow, and react as necessary. We are making progress across all these priorities, and we remain very grateful for the leadership provided by the chair of the Presidential Task Force and the executive governors of all the states in Nigeria. In all the states we visited, we also met and expressed our thanks to the healthcare workers that have been working so hard across all these centers. They've continued to work extremely hard in the response, both to COVID and all the other infectious disease threats that we face. We will continue to work to support all the states in Nigeria to build up their resilience, as the goal is to build back a stronger health security architecture across all the states in Nigeria. Also in Nigeria, COVID-19 cases have continued to decline, as you would have seen. However, our response activities continue. We have seen a decline in the number of cases now across over 8 consecutive weeks. However, we're still scaling testing, pushing hard on risk communications and all the other activities. And we will continue to do so every single day, every week over the next few months. We've been working with many states to roll out rapid diagnostic test kits, and we're happy with the progress being made. We urge all Nigerians to continue to adhere to these public health measures in order to maintain the gains that we've made. Many of you would have heard my previous comments around the verification platform for test results for travelers. That verification platform is now live. Last week, many intending travelers were turned back and handed over to security agencies because they were trying to travel with fake lab results. Sometimes these results were procured by agents, but to be honest, everyone has to take responsibility for the test result in your hands. From now on, all tests by private labs for trial will be verifiable by airlines, by embassies, by countries. We advise all Nigerians, in fact everyone traveling, to spare themselves the inconvenience and embarrassment by doing the test in one of the accredited labs, which you can find on our website. Before you travel, please check the destination country's requirements. If it includes a PCR negative test, do this in any of the accredited labs, and you get a result that is verifiable through any of the airlines. It's very important you do this. I'm sure no one wants to back at the gate of the airline. So finally, we're also responding, like you would have heard, to an incident in Kano State, where there's been a cluster of cases of undefined illness. Most cases have had fever, jaundice, some abdominal pain. We have ruled out the more common causes of these from infectious diseases point of view, yellow fever, Lassa. So now we're looking at a few other options of what has been causing this, but we have a team in Kano right now working with colleagues in the Federal Ministry, NAFDAC, and a few other agencies working together to get to the bottom of that particular cluster. A lot of the response is being driven by the human resources and centers that we have built up during this outbreak, but also prior to this outbreak. This week is also very important to mention, as we're all focused on COVID. The respiratory infection that has killed the most number of people to date is a disease that we all know called tuberculosis. And next week on the 24th of March is the World Tuberculosis Day. It's a day to raise awareness on this important disease that continues to affect millions of Nigerians, but who many of us, a disease that many of us don't think as important anymore. We must continue to focus on prevention, early detection and response to this disease. We've been working very closely with the National TB Program to strengthen TB surveillance and to make sure that we build on some of the human resources, the investments that were made in COVID to support TB, but also realize that a lot of the gene expert machines that we've been using for COVID actually came from the TB program. And our challenge as a country is to make sure that all these resources work across board to support our infectious disease response altogether. So in conclusion, we're extremely delighted with the progress made by the National Primary Healthcare Development Agencies and all the state governments in getting our vaccination program started. We urge all Nigerians to continue to take responsibility. If you're eligible to get a vaccine, please access this. Please continue also at the same time to practice all the public health measures we've been talking about. We are much closer to controlling the acute phase of this pandemic than ever before. But our actions over the next few months will determine our outcome in Nigeria. So thank you very much.
The Chairman of the PTF and Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Honorable Ministers here present, members of the Presidential Task Force, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I want to particularly say good evening to you gentlemen of the press. I welcome you to this week's briefing, and I hope that you had a nice weekend and have been keeping safe. Let me start by thanking you for your relentless support to the government in this collective fight against COVID-19. Your role in creating awareness and educating Nigerians on this disease and its prevention will go a long way in history as the role you played in facilitating development in Nigeria. Recently, there has been concerns raised on the safety and efficacy of the Oxford-AstraZeneca vaccine presently being used for vaccination in Nigeria. As I mentioned the last time, the World Health Organization, WHO, is unequivocal in urging countries in Europe and globally to continue the vaccine administration. Furthermore, the European Medicines Agency, EMA, has declared the Oxford AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine as safe and efficacious. This was after its thorough investigations that were conducted into cases of adverse events of blood clotting that was alleged to have been linked to the batch ABV 5300 of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in some European countries. Furthermore, results from the long-awaited US trial of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine confirm that it is both safe and highly effective. It is 79% effective at stopping symptomatic COVID, and it is 100% effective at preventing serious illness. The study also showed no issue regarding blood clots. While it is worthy to mention that Nigeria did not at any time receive this batch of Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine, it is gratifying to note that some of the countries that had earlier suspended vaccination with AstraZeneca vaccine have resumed its use. The chairman of the PTF has already mentioned that we're in receipt of 300,000 doses of the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine donated by the MTN group. While we appreciate this kind gesture, we are already in the process of determining how these vaccines will be deployed to the states. At this stage, it is important to update Nigerians that so far, 122,410 people have been vaccinated with the Oxford AstraZeneca vaccine in Nigeria. Available records from the vaccination sites do not indicate any serious adverse events following immunization from the ongoing COVID-19 vaccination exercise since its national launch on the 5th of March 2021. No Nigerian so far has developed any known severe side effects following vaccination with the AstraZeneca vaccine. While we have observed among some vaccinees that there may be mild symptoms such as pain and swelling at the site of the vaccination, body pains, and mild fever, it is very important to note that it is possible for you to take the vaccine and have other diseases that are completely unrelated to the vaccination process. So just because you take the vaccine and then you have malaria or you have some other symptoms, those should not necessarily be linked with the vaccines. Nonetheless, we shall continue to collaborate with the NAFDAC pharmacovigilance team to monitor the administration of the vaccine and document any adverse reactions following the vaccination with COVID-19 vaccines. We believe this will further assure Nigerians that that government is honest and transparent in its choice of this vaccine for the purpose of protecting citizens against COVID-19. As of today, full implementation of the COVID-19 vaccination of eligible population has commenced in 33 states and the FCT, while 4 states, Kogi, Kebbi, Zamfara, and Oyo states, are yet to commence implementation. I am aware that Kebbi State will be flagging off the vaccination program today by 3 p.m. We're yet to get confirmation of that, though. Some of the information reaching us from the state is that there are reports of alleged vaccine mismanagement at some vaccination sites. An example was that was reported at the police clinic, Falomo, in Lagos State. This is currently being investigated, and we understand from the Lagos State government that a report will be made available today. We anticipate that decisive action will be taken against anyone found culpable of subverting the vaccination process. So we do expect full application of accountability mechanisms on this issue. Beyond this case, the Presidential Task Force is closely monitoring vaccine accountability all across the country in order to ensure that similar cases of vaccine mismanagement and other sharp practices are avoided. We have also established a collaborative partnership with regulatory and anti-corruption agencies to further strengthen vaccine accountability. Generally, the procurement of vaccines will be done with the utmost transparency and government-approved due processes. We have also instituted mechanisms to ensure that the rollout of the COVID-19 vaccines in all states is equally free from corrupt practices. Therefore, any information of vaccine mishandling and mismanagement will be handled using stringent measures and appropriate sanctions. Gentlemen of the press, I would like to clarify that the current phase 1 vaccination process covers health workers and other frontline workers, but with the health workers given priority ahead of others. The frontline workers include personnel from sectors such as the military, the paramilitary, and other security agencies, transportation and logistics, communications, education, religious bodies, finance, relevant government agencies such as NIMSI, and others who interface regularly with crowds of people by nature of their duties. We believe that it is important for the media to be reminded of this so that the general public will understand why these categories of people are prioritized in this first phase of the vaccination process. As we continue to engage and sensitize critical stakeholders in our mobilization efforts for a successful COVID-19 vaccination in Nigeria, the PTF, in collaboration with the Supreme Council for Islamic Affairs, engaged with Muslim scholars and imams across the country. During this meeting, which was chaired by His Eminence, the Sultan of Sokoto, and President General of the Supreme Council, further clarifications were made on the facts, myths, and benefits of the ongoing COVID-19 vaccination. The clerics further echoed their commitment and support for the vaccination exercise and other public health interventions. Finally, the COVID-19 e-registration portal is still available and continuously being optimized to provide the best service. We've just entered the first 1.5 weeks or thereabout of the e-registration and e-vaccination. We have 2 years within which we want to implement this program. So it is understandable that there will be teething problems. In places where there are network issues, it is expected that there will be challenges. But we've also established a call center where people will be able to call and seek clarification or guidance. We also know from the reports we've gotten in the States that a lot of people are not used to using electronic platforms. A lot of the people who we have trained as recorders also have challenges with scanning QR codes onto the platform. So we've had to do multiple training across the nation so that with this early stage of the rollout, the recorders and team members are better equipped and will get used to using this electronic platform. Again, these are still baby steps that we're taking with an electronic platform that promises to transform immunization in the country. So, like they say, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. In the last couple of days, we've just taken the initial steps, and we believe that in the end, we'll all be better for it when we have an electronic system that truly, truly works. I want to end by again thanking all of you for your support, for all of the messages that have been replicated and shared across social media. We feel very, very lucky that in some states, we have so many Nigerians actually demanding for the vaccines. This is quite against the original grain of thought that there was going to be a lot of hesitancy. But like you see what's happening in Lagos, people are even going through methods that are really unnecessary to get the vaccines. We know that we have a plan that is phased and that every Nigerian will get the vaccines. We just need to wait for our turns. Thank you very much for your attention.
You've just listened to and or watched the Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shoaib. It has been an in-depth analysis. It's now the time for us to take updates from various sectors. Please permit me now to invite the Honorable Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, to the platform. Welcome, sir.
Gentlemen of the media, good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, sir, and my colleagues. We have a very brief one from civil aviation today. Regarding the Kano Airport and Port Harcourt and Enugu that we announced will be opened, and we give certain dates. Those dates are sacrosanct, but regarding Kano, over the weekend, a technical team from the PTF conducted technical meetings and an airport inspection on the readiness for the resumption of flights. The team observed state arrangements including designing surge staff, heightened surveillance, accrediting more labs on the travel portal, and designation quarantine facilities and providing security and logistics arrangement. To institutionalize this, a technical working group structure with clear roles and responsibilities was established, consisting of airports and stakeholders to drive the process forward. I would like to report that the Malam Aminu Kano International Airport, scheduled to commence international flight on the 4th of April 2021, a schedule would continue, and a simulation exercise is scheduled to take place a few days before the flights resume, pending, of course, the NTA concluding their own bit. But the date is sacrosanct and will happen by the grace of God. The PTF also will visit Port Harcourt and Enugu airports, respectively, for similar exercise. And we like to thank all of our stakeholders, including state governments, where they had shown tremendous amount of support and welcomed us warmly. Then the second one from civil aviation is that you recall at the beginning of the pandemic, we stopped serving catering aboard our flights. So the PTF has taken decision that these catering services will resume immediately, but the process and the procedure would be unveiled to them via NCAA in due course. And this is in line with global happenings and to support those businesses that are into catering and also for the additional comfort of the passengers. The protocols will be revealed by the NCAA. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much, Senator Sirika. Let us now take another update from the Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajia Sadia Umar Farouk.
Chairman of the PTF, Amaka, you. Okay, I'm back again. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen of the media, good evening, and it's good to see you again. I'd like to use this medium to commend the chairman for his leadership in coordinating the national response, as well as members of the team for their unwavering support and contributions, as well as members of the media for the good work that I've been doing. At least this year is good. I'm not receiving any bashing anymore. The Federal Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development has been facilitating its social investment program to cushion the effect of this pandemic in order to mitigate any adverse risk and vulnerabilities on households. More recently, we have targeted rural women across various states, and this intervention is ongoing. We just have about 3 or 4 states left. The ministry now working to support vulnerable persons under our purview that require vaccination in line with the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency's plan to reach this group in the second phase. Data mined from the National Social Registry, as well as data sourcing points from the various agencies and parastatals under the ministry, has now shown over 3 million persons in need of this vaccination. And the ministry will now work closely with the NPHCDA to develop an implementation plan to reach the most vulnerable, which include the elderly, persons living with disabilities, the vulnerable poor, and internally displaced persons. We will ensure they are properly sensitized of the risks and side effects and receive psychosocial support from our social workers, and issues of comorbidities are considered before they are administered these vaccines. Thank you very much.
I want to thank all the presenters for all that they have informed the public. This is now the time for us to take some of your questions. So let us call on Amaka, representing Arise Television.
The Chairman, members of the PTF, my colleagues, my name is Amaka Ode. I represent Arise News. And of course, my first question has to go to the National Coordinator of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency. Quick question for you, sir. Are we still sticking with the plans of vaccinating frontline workers in this first phase of vaccination? I ask you this because I have gone out there and I have seen people who are not frontline workers getting vaccinated in this first phase. So I need to get from you if there's a tweak in the plan as to who should get vaccinated in the first phase of the vaccination program of the National Primary Healthcare Development Agency in Nigeria. And the next question is going to still you, Dr. Faisal Shuaibu. The websites that you have set out, I had an opportunity to speak to some frontline workers. Unfortunately, most of them are not even able to register. I'm talking about those in the remote areas of Nigeria, be it network issues or sometimes they don't even have the data. Let's be realistic here. Some of them don't have that access. So is there an alternative plan to ensure that these frontline workers who you set out to target in this first phase of this vaccination program are carried along in this first phase of the vaccination program in Nigeria? And my next question actually goes to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs. Good to have you back. It's been a long time since we have you here. But let's talk about, we need to get an update. Yes, you spoke about the fact that there are some Nigerians who you have identified to actually get vaccinated in this first phase. But we need to get an update on the schools, especially the school feeding program. and what you're up to, especially in those areas where schools have been shut. Have you come up with an alternative plan for those, almost 6,000 schools that have been shut in northern Nigeria to actually get their food? Because it's the Nigerians and they need to get that program running in their state. And finally, the Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, you have actually spoken about the fact that, in-service will actually resume in terms of getting the food while you're on board traveling. But you did not specify. Is this restricted to the local travel, or we're looking at international travel? So we need that clarification from you, sir. That is all my questions. Thank you very much.
Good evening, all. Rachel Abuja from the News Agency of Nigeria. Yeah, my first question is for the DG NCDC. So you made mention of World TB Day, which is going to be on Wednesday, right? And I would like to know, or Nigerians would like to know, what are the new strategies do we have in place to improve our case finding? Because I don't know if DG is aware that we are currently below 30% also. Thank you very much. For Mr. Chairman, sir, you made mention of 1 year into lockdown. What advice do you have for Nigerians who are presently dealing with pandemic fatigue? My last question is for the ED. Which AstraZeneca COVID vaccine badges did we get from MTN? And I would also like to know if our teach strategy is working. Now, you said we've so far vaccinated above 120,000, right? Yes. So I want to know if the 60,000 health workers are part of these numbers. Thank you very much.
The chairman and members of PTF, my colleagues, my name is Kenneth Nanim. I report for NTA. My question will be for Dr. Faisal. Please, the first time the vaccination was launched at the National Hospital, you made some explanations concerning the card that is being issued to persons who receive the vaccines. You explained that the card contains some personal data of individuals. So some Nigerians want to know what happens in case of loss or damage of that card. How does one get a replacement? Thank you.
My name is Felix Ono. I write for Reuters. Chairman, my question is for the Minister of Aviation. Honorable Minister, I would like to know why the operations in and out of Nigeria, of the Emirate, is being suspended. I want to know the details of some of those things.
You're not very loud. Yeah, that's okay.
Suspension of the Emirate.
Thank you so much. That's the outlook for our questions for today. Let's now begin with aviation. Let us invite the Honorable Minister of Aviation back to the podium, Senator Sirika.
Thank you very much, folks. I'm back. And I think there are two questions for me. One of them is suspension of Emirates. We've explained on this platform the reasons as to why the suspension. It initially was both for Emirates and for KLM. KLM accepted the conditions, which make sense to us scientifically and according to our protocols. Emirates are still discussing. So as soon as they're done with that, we agree. And here is the problem. They are requiring that we do a PCR test, which is accurate within 72 hours. And on arrival, we do another PCR test in Dubai. But at the airport before departure, we do a rapid test, making 3 tests within 24 hours. It doesn't make scientific sense because if you caught the COVID right after you test negative, meaning that if they take your sample now and you are negative, but an hour later you caught COVID, it takes about 4 days to incubate, to begin to show when you are tested. Then I take my test yesterday, and I arrive at Abuja airport with a negative. You ask me to do a rapid test again. And when I arrive Dubai 7 hours later, I do another PCR test. It doesn't add up. It's cumbersome. It's telling on the passengers, and the facilitation becomes more difficult for us, and our airports becomes inefficient, and the traveler suffers. And globally, everybody accepts what we propose. And their argument earlier on was that some of the results in Nigeria are turning out to be fake. There are fake results in France, in UAE, in England, in America, in Germany, everywhere. Furthermore, the PTF devised a mechanism using NCDC and other of our agencies to ensure that the results, once are taken, they are on the portal of NCDC, and they can determine whether they're fake or they're engineering. So that problem has been eliminated. Therefore, to make us to go through 3 tests within 24 hours does not make sense. So therefore, it stands. And on the other one, the catering, whether international or local, it is for both. Mind you, the international have been given some chosen kind of service because, of course, 7 hours is really a long journey, and they've been given some service. So domestically, we would be given service as well, and also including international, so that passengers will have more comfort, and then, of course, the entrepreneurs that invested in catering will make money out of it, because they're hit hardest. In the last 1 year, they hadn't sold anything. Thank you very much.
Next, to come to the podium will be Honorable Minister of Humanitarian Affairs, Disaster Management and Social Development, Hajiya Sadiya Umar Farouk.
Thank you very much. Amaka, I think your question is on the National Homegrown School Feeding Program. You want to know whether these children that are not in school, how we are going to feed them. Is it about feeding the children? Well, the program can only be administered if children are in school, unless otherwise directed. So if they are in school, we feed them. And if they're not in school, we hope that the schools will open, or they'll come back to school, and then we continue with the program. But for now, for those that are not in school, there's no feeding for them. Is that not the question?
We had some plans made during the lockdown, even when schools.
And that's why I said unless otherwise directed, because that was a directive by His Excellency, Mr. President, that we should continue to feed. Now we are waiting for if we get such directives. Thank you very much.
DG NCDC.
So thanks, Rachel. Your question was on TB and on case finding. So it's very important that we're here gathered. There's a presidential task force on COVID. But on one of the oldest diseases known to man, tuberculosis, first described in 1882, still kills millions of people. The whole world has never been able to mount a significant response. People that suffer from TB are normally the poorest in our society. It's a disease defined by socioeconomic class. So the theme for the World TB Day this year is the clock is ticking. And it really is a call to attention that if we can mobilize ourselves globally for a disease like COVID, we can also leverage on some of the investments made, both in surveillance, in lab, in case finding, to build and support the work we're doing on TB and on all the other infectious diseases. We have a threat of many infectious diseases in Nigeria, whether it's TB or cholera, that is really related primarily to poverty. So what we want to do is to pool our resources together and leverage on the investments that we've now made to really support a reinvigorated response across all of them. And that's really our strategy at the NCDC and at the federal government level, to pool our resources, make sure that we use the, not just resources, but attention of our political leadership and make it drive the rest of the sector forward. And that's our commitment to Nigerians. Thank you.
The Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shoaib.
Yeah, thank you very much for those questions. So the first one was from Amaka. She asked that she had observed that not only frontline health workers were taking the vaccines, right? So in the first phase, bear me to reiterate that it is the frontline health workers, their support staff, other health workers, frontline workers that are not health workers, and strategic leaders that are in the current phase. That is the phase 1. So that means for those who are frontline workers and are not health workers, this includes military personnel, people who are likely to come in contact with crowds. We even listed journalists as frontline workers. But of course, what we also said is that they are not as frontline as health workers who manage cases of COVID-19. In our interaction with the states, and given that we're also getting additional vaccines, we've asked the states to set aside the vaccines that they need for this category of people, and the balance of those vaccines they can also use to start vaccinating those that we've categorized as belonging to the second phase. That is those who are 50 years and above, okay? So you may go to some health facilities and you see that they've already started vaccinating these individuals. The whole idea is not to skip vaccines in your health centers, but to rapidly vaccinate Nigerians so that we can get ahead of the pandemic. Amaka, if you were paying attention, you will realize that we talked about the Falomor situation where, well, it is not, I mean, like, you grew up in Nigeria, right? So you're in Nigeria, you know that, people are going to try, if you allow me finish, Amaka, people are going to try to subvert the system. It is something that we know exists. This is why the Presidential Task Force took preemptive steps. We engaged vaccine accountability officers. We have national officers that we've deployed to the field. We've also engaged with ICPC and communicated with EFCC because we know these things are definitely going to happen. I mean, my brother Chikwe probably did not mention this as part of his briefing today, but earlier at the PTF meeting, there were instances within a very short period, I think it was a week or thereabout, where over 200 Nigerians were coming with fake test results. Like, this is just not acceptable, right? And this is why, as a PTF, we have communicated very clearly that, yes, it is one thing that people are doing this in the shadows, but where they are caught, like it has happened in Lagos State, we're still waiting for the reports, that the actions and the penalties against those individuals should be stiff so that it becomes a deterrent to others who might want to do this type of, engage in this type of criminal activities, right? It is not acceptable, and this is what we're communicating, right? You see, the flip side too, Amaka, is we were all concerned that when the vaccines will come, there were groups of hesitant, vaccine hesitants that said, oh, they're not going to take the vaccines. What we're saying, on the contrary, is that people are bending over backwards trying to get the vaccine, right? So it is also a testament to the work that you guys have done. You guys have also communicated very clearly that these vaccines are safe and effective. This is why Nigerians are coming out in their droves to try and get the vaccines even ahead of when it is their time. That does not excuse trying to pay to get the vaccines. The vaccines are free and people should wait for their turn. You also asked about, people that live in rural areas and people who probably are not familiar with the use of, technology. This is why, as part of the TEACH strategy, there's T, which is for the traditional method of rolling out campaigns. E is the e-registration. A is for assisted registration. So for those who are not able to carry this activity in terms of registering, there are people who can assist them. But there's also those that can do the walk-in. That is to say, you walk in on the day that you want to get vaccinated, you go to the site, you can be registered, and then you will be vaccinated. Why are we doing this? On the one hand, we want the electronic registration because we want an electronic database. But on the other hand, we do not want to we don't want to miss any opportunity to vaccinate Nigerians. That is why if you walk in, you will still be registered, you'll be vaccinated, okay? So if you do not if you e-register ahead of time, you get scheduled. But even if you don't do that, right, just like you mentioned, right, it is not anybody's fault that they live in a rural area. So just because they live in a rural area, they don't have internet facilities, they are not able to register, that does not mean that you should not be able to accommodate them. That is why we say you can still walk into a health facility and then you understand. Okay, excellent. So there was a question from NAN, News Agency of Nigeria, about the AstraZeneca vaccine. Rachel, I'm not sure I got that question. You asked which batch? The AstraZeneca vaccine. Okay, so, just like we did with the first batch of vaccines that came from India, NAFDAC has to go through all of those processes. Once NAFDAC says it's okay to use the vaccines, then we take the vaccines, take custody of the vaccines, and we're happy to share that information. I believe that we shared the 3 batches for the last consignment with, with you guys. So over 122 people have been vaccinated so far, most of them within the last 1 week, right? That's setting aside what we did for the symbolic launch the week before last. And a huge number of these health workers, frontline health workers. I'm happy to share the details in terms of the breakdown with you next time. But what we're going to be doing, starting today, is actually providing, Nigerians with a dashboard of, the number of people who have been vaccinated so far and the breakdown by state, okay? So that will be available in the next couple of hours. Then there was a question from NTA that what happens if you lose your vaccination card? Now, that vaccination card has a QR code, right? So that is the COVID-19 vaccination passport, as it were. So when it is scanned, it will pull up some basic information, including your photo, that tells whoever is scanning that information, be it at the airport or wherever, that you've taken the AstraZeneca vaccine and whether you've gotten just a single dose or both doses of the AstraZeneca vaccine. So that is a very important document, especially for international travelers. If you were to lose that document, you can still go back to your health facility and your records will be pulled up, either with your name, your phone number, or the vaccination ID that you have. And then, of course, you'll have to prove that you're actually the person, that is asking for this document. That is why your photo is on there so that it can be matched. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. The Executive Director, National Primary Healthcare Development Agency, Dr. Faisal Shoaib. Thanks once again. Let me now invite the Chairman of PTF and the Secretary to Government of the Federation back to the podium for a few interventions and closing remarks.
I think we need to deal with this issue, which is very foundational. And believe me, if we don't deal with the Nigerian factor, we are not likely to make progress on several fronts. It is only in Nigeria that we even have a cliche that says that with proper arrangement, man see God. With proper arrangement, man see God. So it's so foundational that we need to deal with it. I was not shocked by the current happenings, in spite of all the efforts that have been put in place to ensure that the proper thing is done. Because in spite of the fact that as Nigerians we are brilliant, we are sharp, we are very industrial, but there is still one devil that is tagging along with us that would not let us go free as a people if we don't deal with it. That's behavioral change. There must be a paradigm shift. That for once, let's do the proper thing. Let's do the proper thing and get things right. But I think because of this innate thing that is inbuilt, one, there is a trust deficit, which is very foundational too. For a long time, people don't seem to believe whatever is put in place is for the best of the community. And if we can just do things properly, everybody will be catered for. So at every given time, there's this desire to circumvent the process, short-circuit the process, and get ahead or get over and ahead of the line and get things done. So it will not be the problem of government alone. It's our collective problem, and that we need to deal with it. We must begin to, in retrospect, begin to believe government when it sets out and establishes. I remember the outbreak of this pandemic when we first congregated here. There were a lot of mistrust, doubts as to whether Nigeria will be able to deliver on its national response. But to the glory of God today, if you count 10 nations in the world, you must put Nigeria there whether you like it or not, about how effective we have handled this pandemic in spite of our fragile and fractured health infrastructure. The things we in place 6 months ago is what the world is copying today, by virtue of the regime of our tests. I'm not saying this with any element of pride, but I'm saying that if we resolve as a people to deal with any matter, by virtue of the industry of our people, the intellect of our people, the capacity and the ability of our people, we will always be able to do that. And my sincere appeal to Nigerians is that if a government places a policy or a response that should cater for everybody, the Primary Healthcare Development Agency has set up 4 phases of the administration of this vaccine. And if we are patient enough and not wanting to cut corners and do all manners of dubious things to get vaccinated, each and every person that falls within the category of those that have been put into different 4 phases of the application or administration of the vaccine, we will be able to get them vaccinated over a period of time. And my appeal to all of you, particularly the Nigerian media, is that you should walk along with us. Let me say one thing. If Arise Television did not take up the Lagos issue in the manner which it took up, with visuals of what exactly happening with the people caught on camera, there could have even been denials as to whether it happened or not. So the Nigerian media have a role to play in this matter. You are supposed to be our watchdog. You are supposed to pretend, by virtue of the platform you have, to ensure that the proper thing is done. And when there is an infraction, it should be reported. And people should be punished for that infraction. If we don't do that, I'm not a prophet of doom, but I can tell you that very soon you will see these vaccines, not in pharmaceutical shops, in patent medicine shops. You will see them on the shelves of patent medicine hawkers if we don't do the proper thing. And it will not be the responsibility of government alone. So you have quacks administering these vaccines. Instead of one vial, they give you 10, and the trouble will start. I'm being emotive about this matter because it goes to the foundation of who we are as a people and where we are desiring to go. So the choice is ours. As Nigerians, do we want to continue along that path, that everything must be circumvented, everything must be riddled with people trying to cut corners and get ahead of the line, or we want to do the proper thing and be accountable to each and every one, which is the most important thing that we need to do. And this is a collective responsibility because nobody is safe until all are safe. So whatever you do affects me. Whatever I do affects you. So it's a shared responsibility. And I believe probably with the actions that we have asked to be taken, if they are taken and people are punished and they are named and shamed, probably we will begin to have a cleaner way of approaching national issues. Rachel, you did ask what advice I have due to pandemic fatigue. It's not a Nigerian phenomenon. It's a global phenomenon. Fatigue is all over the place. And I believe it's either we contain the fatigue and keep doing what has brought us this level of success, or we discard the fatigue, ignore what has accounted for our level of success, and begin to deal with future consequences of our actions. Look at what is happening in other developed economies where they have been so fatigued. They have felt as if life has constrained them in every facet, and they have decided to discard certain measures that have helped them achieve the level of successes they've achieved. I was looking at the CNN yesterday and I noticed that a couple of states in the United States where by regulation or by declaration of their state governors, they have decided to discard with some of the non-pharmaceutical measures that have been in place globally to help curb COVID-19. And they are beginning to see resurgence in those states because they are throwing caution to the winds, and there are dire consequences of that, in spite of the fact that they have vaccinated a substantial number of their population. I think as of today, they have vaccinated about 112 million Americans.